The alarm screamed through every corridor of Talon 7 station. Red lights flashed against metal walls. Everyone knew what that sound meant. Something dangerous was coming. Tae-ho Kim sat at his desk in the xenobiology lab when the emergency broadcast cut through his work. The mechanical voice was calm but clear. Vrexil detected. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Around him, the station became chaos. Aliens of every species dropped their work and ran. The insectoid Ticklesh clicked and buzzed in panic as they scrambled for the escape pods. The floating Erelans deflated their gas sacs to move faster through doorways. Even the usually calm crystallines cracked and fractured in their rush to leave. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vrexil. They were hunters, perfect killers. 8 limbs tipped with blades sharp enough to cut through starship hull plating. Exoskeletons harder than military armor. They hunted alone and they never failed. When a Vrexil appeared, smart beings ran. It was the only way to survive. Tae-ho stood and walked to the observation window. Outside, he could see the crash site. A small ship had come down hard about 200 meters from the station. Smoke rose from the wreckage. Something moved in the debris. "Dr. Kim, we need to go now." His assistant, a nervous Ticklesh named Rillik, pulled at his sleeve with 3 of his 6 arms. "You go," Tae-ho said quietly. "Take the others. I'll lock down the lab. Are you insane? That's a Vrexil out there. It will kill everything it sees." "Maybe," Tae-ho said. He kept his eyes on the wreckage. "Maybe not." Rillik made a sound that the translator called a curse and ran for the evacuation zone. Within 10 minutes, Tae-ho was alone on the station. The massive structure designed for 300 beings now held just 1 human. He gathered his medical supplies. Bandages, surgical tools, painkillers, antiseptics, everything he could carry. Then he put on his environment suit and walked to the airlock. The station computer tried to stop him. Warning. Extreme danger detected outside. Exit not advised. Override authorization Kim 7 Alpha, Tae-ho said. Open the airlock, confirmed. May your atoms find peace. Even the computer thought he was going to die. The moon's surface was cold and barren. Tae-ho's boots crunched on the frozen ground as he walked toward the crash. His helmet display showed his elevated heart rate, but his hands were steady. He had spent 5 years studying Vrexil behavior. He had watched every video, read every report, analyzed every attack. He knew things about them that most beings never survived long enough to learn. The Vrexil emerged from the wreckage before he got close. She was huge, 3 meters tall even on her lower limbs. Her black exoskeleton gleamed in the weak sunlight. Her blade arms extended, each one longer than Tae-ho's entire body. She hissed. The sound carried across the thin atmosphere, making Tae-ho's translator crackle. It meant many things in Vrexil language, but mostly it meant danger. Tae-ho stopped walking. He stayed perfectly still. This was the moment. The moment when he would either prove his theories or prove them very wrong. The Vrexil moved toward him. Fast. Faster than most beings could track. But Tae-ho didn't run. He watched her movements. The way her middle left limb dragged slightly, the green fluid leaking from joints in her armor. The way her head tilted just a fraction to the right. She was hurt. Badly hurt. And she was confused. "I know you're in pain," Tae-ho said calmly. His translator would convert his words to chemical signals she could understand. "I can help you." The Vrexil stopped. Her blade arm stayed extended, ready to strike. But she didn't attack. Tae-ho saw the micro-movements in her chitinous plates. The flutter of sensory organs along her neck. The tension in her lower limbs. She wasn't preparing to kill. She was trying to decide. Tae-ho slowly knelt down. He kept his movement smooth and deliberate. He opened his medical kit and laid out supplies on the ground between them. Then he stayed there, kneeling, waiting. The Vrexil watched him. Seconds became minutes. Tae-ho didn't move. His knees began to ache from the kneeling position. His back started to hurt. But he stayed still. Finally, the Vrexil's blade arms retracted slightly. She took 1 step closer. Then another. Then she was standing over him, close enough to kill him in half a second. Tae-ho looked up at her. "I'm going to stand now, slowly." He rose to his feet. The Vrexil was still taller, but now he could reach her injuries. He pointed to the leaking wound on her middle limb. "That needs to be cleaned and sealed." "May I?" The Vrexil made a sound. A click and hiss combination that meant something between yes and "I am watching you." Tae-ho worked carefully. The wound was deep. Something had pierced through a joint in her natural armor. He cleaned it with antiseptic. The Vrexil flinched but didn't pull away. He applied a bonding gel designed for chitin-based life forms. Then he wrapped it with a flexible bandage that would hold even under extreme stress. There were other injuries. Burns along her right side. Cuts on 3 of her limbs. A crack in her head plating that made Taiho worry about internal damage. He treated each one, working steadily for almost an hour. The whole time, the station's external cameras recorded everything. The footage was automatically transmitted to the nearest Galactic Council outpost. Across 36 star systems, beings watched in disbelief as a human treated of Vrexil's wounds, while standing within killing distance. When Taiho finished, he stepped back. "You should rest. Your body needs time to heal. There's a cargo bay in the station that's climate-controlled. You can stay there." The Vrexil looked at him, really looked at him. Her compound eyes reflected his image 1,000 times over. Then she made a sound Taiho had never heard from a Vrexil before. A low thrumming that came from deep in her chest. His translator struggled with it for a moment. Then it offered a translation. "Strange small thing, not prey. My name is Taiho," he said. The Vrexil tilted her head. The thrumming sound came again. "Taiho, I am Kervesh." It was the first time in galactic history that a Vrexil had given her name to another species. Taiho led Kervesh to the cargo bay. He set up heaters and brought her food from the station's stores. She ate while he watched, noting her feeding patterns. Then she settled into a corner and became very still, entering the rest state that Vrexil used to heal. Taiho returned to his lab. His hands were shaking now that the danger had passed. He sat down at his desk and pulled up the station logs. Messages were flooding in from the Galactic Council. Demands for explanation. Threats of quarantine. Accusations of insanity. He ignored them all. Instead, he wrote in his personal journal, "Day 1 with Kervesh. Subject did not attack despite having multiple opportunities. Pain response appears similar to Earth arthropods. Trust established at basic level. Will continue observation." Outside his window, the moon's sun set. The station became quiet. And somewhere in the cargo bay, a predator that should have killed the human slept peacefully, healing under his care. Taiho smiled. His theories were correct. Vrexil weren't mindless killers. They were intelligent hunters who had simply never met a species that understood them. Until now. Until humans. 3 months had passed since Kervesh arrived at Talon 7. The station had returned to normal operations, though now with one very unusual resident. Scientists from across the galaxy found excuses to visit. Everyone wanted to see the impossible. Sight of a human and a Vrexil living together, Taiho sat in the observation room watching Kervesh practice her hunting movements. In the large cargo bay he had converted into her living space. She was fully healed now. Her movements were fluid and deadly. She could have left weeks ago, returned to her clan's territory. But she stayed. The door slid open behind him. Taiho didn't turn around. He recognized the footsteps. "Still staring at your dangerous friend?" Doyen Choi said. The security officer carried 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Taiho. "The council delegation arrives in 2 hours." "I know." Taiho sipped the coffee. It was terrible as always. Station supplies never included good coffee. "They'll want to study us like we're laboratory specimens." "You are laboratory specimens. Or at least you're the most interesting thing happening in the galaxy right now." Doyen pulled up a chair. "The betting pools have you dead within 6 months. The odds are 15 to 1. Thanks for the vote of confidence." "I didn't bet against you," Doyen grinned. "I put money on you surviving and becoming rich from book deals about this." Below them, Kervesh stopped moving. She looked up at the observation window. Even though the glass was one way, Taiho knew she could sense him there. She raised one blade arm in what they had established as a greeting gesture. Taiho pressed his hand against the glass. Kervesh held the gesture for 3 seconds, then returned to her practice. "That's just weird," Doyen said quietly. "What is?" "That, the whole thing. Of Vrexil being friendly. It breaks everything we thought we knew." "No," Taiho said. "It just means we didn't know enough." The council delegation arrived exactly on schedule. 6 beings representing 6 different species. The leader was Ambassador Theln, a crystalline whose body reflected rainbow light in every direction. Next to him stood Hyejin Park, a human xenopsychologist who had been studying Taiho's reports for weeks. "Dr. Kim," Hyejin said as they met in the station's conference room. She spoke Korean, which surprised Taiho. Most humans in space used standard galactic common. I've read everything you've sent. It's fascinating work. It's also completely terrifying. Terrifying? Taiho asked. You've befriended the galaxy's most feared predator. Do you understand what that means? Ambassador Thelan's translator device hummed to life. It means we must reassess our understanding of both species, which is why we are here. We wish to observe this partnership. She's not a pet, Taiho said firmly, and she's not a research subject. She's Kervish. She's her own being. Of course, Thelan said, though his crystalline structure flickered in a way that suggested doubt. We simply wish to observe natural behaviors. What the delegation observed over the next 2 weeks changed everything they thought they knew. The first hunt happened on day 3. The station's sensors detected a tunnel worm nest in the nearby canyon system. Tunnel worms were massive predators, each one weighing over 2 tons. They had been attacking the station's mining drones and needed to be eliminated. Station security usually used heavy weapons and drones for this work. But Taiho and Kervesh went on foot, and the delegation followed with long-range cameras. Yejin watched the footage in real time from the safety of the observation center. What she saw made her question everything in her psychology textbooks. Kervesh moved like death itself, silent, efficient. Her blade arms cut through stone like it was paper. But she didn't charge in blindly. She waited. She watched. She coordinated with Taiho. The human moved through the canyon with movements that seemed impossible for a being without natural weapons. He read the environment like a book. He knew where the worms would emerge before they appeared. He used tools, simple tools, things he found lying around or carried in his pack. He turned rocks into weapons. He used explosive mining charges to collapse tunnel entrances. He created traps that would have impressed military engineers. But what truly shocked the observers was his patience. When Kervesh signaled for him to wait, he became as still as stone. When she needed him to draw a worm's attention, he did it without hesitation, trusting her completely to protect him from the exposed position. They killed 3 tunnel worms in 4 hours. Not through superior force, but through perfect cooperation. Replay that last sequence, Hijin told her assistant. She watched as Taiho ran along a narrow ledge, deliberately making noise. A worm burst from the rock wall, its circular mouth full of grinding teeth. It should have caught him, but Kervesh was already there, dropping from above, her blade arms piercing through the worm's brain in a single strike. He trusted her to be in position, Hyejin whispered. He ran along that ledge knowing that if she missed, if she was even 1 second late, he would die. And he did it anyway. Ambassador Theln floated beside her, and she protected him. Of Rexel protecting another being, it should not be possible. They are solitary hunters. They compete even with their own kind. They do not protect. They didn't before, Hyejin corrected, before they met humans. Over the following days, the delegation observed more impossible things. They watched Taiho repair Kervesh's damaged equipment with tool precision that matched her own natural capabilities. They watched Kervesh bring food to Taiho when he worked too long without eating. They watched the two of them communicate through a combination of gestures, sounds, and what could only be called understanding. On day 12, Hyejin requested a private meeting with Taiho. I need to ask you something, she said. They sat in the station's small garden, one of the few places with real plants. Are you afraid of her? Sometimes, Taiho said honestly. When we hunt, when things go wrong, there's always fear. But it's not fear of Kervesh. It's fear of failing her, of not being fast enough or smart enough to match her skills. That's not a normal fear response. Nothing about this is normal. Taiho looked at his hands. They were scarred now from months of working in harsh environments. But normal doesn't mean right. For thousands of years, Rexil have been alone. They hunt alone. They fight alone. They die alone. Maybe they didn't want to be. Maybe they just never found anyone who could keep up. And humans can? Taiho smiled. Humans are pursuit predators, Hyejin. We don't give up, ever. We chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. We solve problems by trying every possible solution until something works. We form packs and we never leave pack members behind. Those traits made us successful on Earth. Maybe they make us compatible with species like the Rexil. Hyejin was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I'm going to include something in my report. Something that will probably terrify the council. What's that? That humans aren't the peaceful explorers we pretend to be. We're not even the clever tool users that other species think we are. We're persistence hunters who learn to hunt ideas and relationships with the same dedication we once hunted animals. And that makes us the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Dangerous how? Because you make everything else better. You push Karavesh to be smarter, more tactical, more cooperative, and she pushes you to be faster, deadlier, more efficient. Together, you're more than the sum of your parts. What happens when humans form these bonds with other species? What happens when human influence spreads across the galaxy? Tejo hadn't thought about it that way. He just knew that working with Karavesh felt right. Natural. Like finding a missing piece of something he didn't know was incomplete. On day 14, something happened that changed everything. Karavesh's biological reading spiked. The medical sensors Tejo had installed showed chemical changes in her system. He recognized the pattern from his studies. She was going to lay eggs. She was about to become a mother, and according to every study ever done on Vrexil biology, that meant she had to return to her clan's breeding grounds immediately. It was biological law, absolute and unchangeable. Tejo found her in the cargo bay that evening. She was arranging her belongings, preparing to leave. "You have to go," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Karavesh said through her translator. "Breeding grounds, territory, must secure for Clutch. When will you be back?" Karavesh was silent. Then her translator crackled. "Vrexil do not return. Once we go to breeding grounds, we stay until cubs are grown. 3 cycles. Maybe 4, 3 years, maybe 4. Tejo felt something strange in his chest. Sadness, loss. The thought of the station without Karavesh felt wrong. "I understand," he said. "Stay safe. Protect your cubs." Karavesh moved closer. She lowered her head until her eyes were level with his. "Tejo. Pack friend. Strong bond. We'll remember." It was the most emotion Tejo had ever heard from her translator. The next morning, Karavesh left. The delegation filmed her departure. She walked out across the moon's surface toward her ship. But before she entered, she turned back and raised one blade arm toward the station. Toward Tejo, he raised his hand in return. Ambassador Theln's structure flickered rapidly. Remarkable. Simply remarkable. She formed an attachment. Vrexil formed an emotional attachment to another being. But Hijin saw more. She saw the way Karavesh hesitated before entering her ship. The way she looked back twice. And she understood that something unprecedented was happening. 6 weeks after Karavesh left, Tejo woke to an emergency transmission. The message was marked Priority 1 and coded directly to him. His hand shook as he opened it. The screen showed Karavesh. But something was wrong. Her exoskeleton showed fresh damage. Green blood leaked from multiple wounds. Behind her, Tejo could see fire and destruction. "Tejo!" Her translator crackled with interference. "Breeding grounds attacked. 3 rival clans. Cannot defend territory and protect Clutch. Cubs too young, too vulnerable." The transmission cut out for a moment. When it returned, Karavesh was closer to the camera. "Request the unprecedented, against all Vrexil law. But trust bond stronger than law." Tejo leaned forward. "What do you need?" "Guard them. Guard my cubs. 2 weeks. I secure territory or die trying. If I die, they are yours. Raise them. Teach them. Make them strong like you." The transmission ended, but a new message appeared. Coordinates for a meeting point. An estimated time of arrival. 4 hours. Tejo sat in the darkness of his room. What Karavesh was asking was impossible. Vrexil never ever left their cubs with another species. The cubs were their genetic future, their legacy, their most precious treasure. For Karavesh to bring them to him meant she trusted him more than her own biology demanded. He got dressed and headed to the command center. Commander Sumin Lee was already there, along with Hyejin and Doyun. They had all received copies of the transmission. Soman's face was tight with stress. "This is insane," she said. "If we accept those cubs, we're making a political statement that will echo across the entire galaxy. If we don't accept them, Karavesh will die trying to defend both her territory and her children," Tejo said. "She came to us because she has no other option." "Exactly my point," came a new voice. Min-Jae Han entered the command center. He was the Galactic Council's security chief for this sector, a Korean man who had spent 20 years in galactic politics. "This sets a precedent. What happens when other species start leaving their offspring with humans? What happens when humans become the galaxy's babysitters? What happens when we prove we can be trusted with the most precious thing a species has? Heejin countered. This could change everything about how the galaxy views humanity. Or it could make us targets, Minjae said. Vrexil cubs are valuable. There are species who would kill to possess them, to study them, to weaponize them. Soman looked at Taiho. Can you do this? Can you actually keep 3 Vrexil cubs alive for 2 weeks? Taiho thought about everything he knew about Vrexil biology. The cubs would be hungry constantly. They would need live prey. They would have instincts to hunt, to fight, to test their blade arms on everything around them. They would be dangerous even as infants, yes, he said. I can do it, how can you be sure? Because Kervesh trusts me, and I won't fail her. Soman made her decision. We accept the cubs. But Taiho, you'll have full authority over their care. No council interference. No scientific observers unless you approve them. This is your responsibility. Minjae started to protest, but Soman cut him off. This is my station, Chief Han, and I'm making the call. If humanity is going to be judged on this, then we'll be judged on our terms. 4 hours later, Kervesh's ship landed in the main hangar. The bay had been cleared of all personnel except Taiho, Doyun, and Hyejin. Security cameras recorded everything for the council archives. Kervesh emerged first. She looked worse in person than she had on the transmission. Her wounds were deep. She was moving with pain. But she held herself with pride and determination. Behind her came 3 small shapes. The cubs were each about the size of a large dog. Their exoskeletons were still soft, gleaming gray instead of the hard black of adults. Their blade arms were short and dull, not yet deadly. They moved in quick, nervous movements, staying close to their mother. Cubs of my clutch, Kervesh said, named in human style as Taiho taught. Kiva eldest, Sai youngest, Rek, middleborn. The cubs chittered and clicked, their sensory organs flickering as they tried to understand this new environment. Kiva, the largest, extended her blade arms slightly in a defensive posture. Sai stayed half hidden behind Kervesh. Rek moved in circles, examining everything. Taiho knelt down slowly. He had learned that making himself smaller made him less threatening. Hello, little ones. I'm Taiho. I'm going to keep you safe while your mother secures your home, Kiva hissed. It was a small sound, almost cute compared to an adult Vrexil's hiss. But the intent was clear, stay back. Kervesh made a deep thrumming sound. The cubs immediately went quiet. Then she did something that made Hyejin gasp. She pressed her head plating against Taiho's forehead. It was a Vrexil gesture of ultimate trust, exposing the most vulnerable part of her body to another being. Pack bond, Kervesh said. These cubs are pack. You are pack. Pack protects pack. This is truth deeper than Vrexil law, deeper than instinct. Then she turned to her cubs. She communicated with them in pure Vrexil language, a combination of clicks, hisses, and chemical signals that no translator could fully capture. But Taiho understood the meaning. She was telling them to trust him, to obey him, to learn from him. Kiva took 1 step toward Taiho, then another. She reached out with 1 small blade arm and touched his hand. The blade was dull but still sharp enough to cut if she wanted. She pressed gently, testing. Taiho didn't pull away. He let her explore. After a moment, Kiva retracted her arm and made a small clicking sound. She accepts, Kervesh said. The others will follow. Kervesh spent 1 hour with her cubs, holding them, grooming their soft exoskeletons, feeding them from supplies she had brought. Then she stood and walked toward her ship. She didn't look back. If she did, Taiho thought she might not be able to leave. The ship launched. The hangar doors closed, and Taiho was left with 3 Vrexil cubs who were now his responsibility. The first day was chaos. The cubs were hungry every 3 hours. They needed raw meat, fresh kills if possible. Taiho had to hunt in the moon's wilderness 4 times that day, bringing back small animals that the cubs tore apart with their developing blade arms. They were also curious. Dangerously curious. Rek tried to cut open a power conduit to see what was inside. Sai attempted to climb the walls and got stuck near the ceiling. Kiva challenged Doyun to what she thought was a play fight, not understanding that humans were fragile compared to Vrexil. Taiho barely slept. He watched them constantly, learning their individual behaviors. Kiva was brave and protective, always positioning herself between her siblings and any perceived threat. Sci was clever, figuring out how doors worked and how to open containers. Rek was energetic, always moving, always testing his abilities. On the second day, the cubs started to trust him. They followed him around the station. They chittered when he entered their room. When Taiho sat down to eat his own meal, all 3 cubs climbed onto him, settling on his lap and shoulders like affectionate cats. Except these cats had blade arms and weighed 30 kilograms each, Hyejin observed from a safe distance. "You look like a very stressed parent," she said. "I am a very stressed parent," Taiho admitted. Kiva was chewing on his sleeve. "But they're learning, watch." He picked up a simple puzzle box he had designed. It required pulling 3 levers in sequence to open. He demonstrated once, then closed it and offered it to Kiva. The cub examined it. She tried to cut it open first, her natural instinct. When that didn't work, she studied the levers. Then carefully she pulled them in the correct sequence. The box opened. "Tool use," Hyejin breathed. "You're teaching them tool use. Vrexel cubs don't develop that skill for months." "Vrexel cubs don't usually have a human teaching them," Taiho said. "I'm giving them advantages their species never had." By day 5, the entire galaxy was watching. The station's cameras had been opened to public feeds by council order. Beings from 1,000 worlds watched the impossible sight of 3 Vrexil cubs playing with a human. Some found it beautiful. Others found it disturbing. But everyone watched. On day 7, disaster struck. A gang of scavengers attacked the station. They were a mixed group of different species, all criminals, all dangerous. They had heard about the Vrexil cubs and wanted to steal them. Young Vrexil were worth millions on the black market. The attack came at night. The scavengers cut through an emergency airlock on the station's lower level. They moved quietly, thinking they would find the cubs alone and undefended. They were wrong. Taiho heard the alarm and grabbed his weapon. But before he could reach the cubs' room, Kiva was already there. The cub had heard the intruders and positioned herself in front of her siblings. The scavengers laughed when they saw the cubs. One reached out to grab Sai. Taiho burst into the room. What happened next would be replayed across the galaxy for years to come. He fought like a creature possessed. He used his weapon to disable 2 attackers immediately. When a third grabbed him, he used human combat techniques that surprised the alien. He bit, clawed, used anything around him as a weapon. He was bleeding. He was outnumbered. But he absolutely refused to let them reach the cubs. Kiva watched the human fight. She saw him protecting her and her siblings. And something awakened in her young mind. She attacked. For a cub, her blade arms were still dangerous. She sliced through environmental suits. She moved with speed that the attackers couldn't match. And she fought alongside Taiho like she had been born to do it. The footage of Taiho defending the cubs spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every major species had seen it. Within days, it was the most viewed broadcast in galactic history. Beings from 1,000 worlds couldn't stop watching the human fight alongside 3 Vrexil cubs. The remaining 7 days became a phenomenon. News networks sent reporters. Scientists requested observation time. Even military organizations wanted to study what was happening on Talon 7. But Commander Soman kept most of them away. Only Hyejin and Doyen were allowed close access. "They're treating you like a celebrity," Doyen said one morning. He was helping Taiho prepare breakfast for the cubs. The cubs ate 6 times a day now, their metabolism burning through food as they grew stronger. "I don't want to be a celebrity," Taiho said. He was tired. His wounds from the attack were healing but still hurt. "I just want to keep them safe until Karavesh returns." 11 days. That's when she's due back. Doyen checked his datapad. "If she comes back." "She'll come back," Taiho said with certainty. Kiva, Sai, and Rek entered the kitchen area. They had learned the station's schedule. They knew when food appeared. Kiva walked directly to Taiho and pressed against his leg, a gesture of greeting. The other 2 cubs climbed onto the counter, their blade arms carefully retracted so they wouldn't damage anything. Taiho had taught them that. Control. Awareness of their own bodies. Understanding that their natural weapons could hurt things they cared about if they weren't careful. He placed fresh meat in 3 bowls. The cubs ate eagerly, making satisfied clicking sounds. While they ate, Taiho observed them. They had grown noticeably larger in just 8 days. Their exoskeletons were hardening, darkening from gray to charcoal. Their blade arms were sharper and longer, but more importantly, they had changed behaviorally. They worked together now. They communicated with each other through complex signals. They showed patience when needed and aggression only when appropriate. After breakfast, Taiho led them to the training area he had set up. It was a large room filled with obstacles, puzzles, and equipment. The cubs loved this time. It was play to them, but Taiho was teaching them skills their species usually took years to develop. "Watch this," Taiho told Hyejin, who was observing from the safe area. He placed a container on a high shelf and sealed it with a complex lock. Inside was a treat the cubs enjoyed. Kiva, Sai, Rek worked together. "Get the container." The three cubs looked at the shelf. It was too high for any one of them to reach. The lock was too complex for their blade arms to simply cut through without destroying the treat inside. Kiva clicked and hissed to her siblings. They responded. Then, working together, they created a solution. Rek positioned himself against the wall. Sai climbed onto his back. Kiva climbed onto Sai. The tower of cubs reached the shelf. Kiva carefully manipulated the lock using her blade tips like precision tools. After 3 minutes of careful work, the lock opened. The cubs shared the treat equally. "Unprecedented," Hyejin whispered. "Vrexil don't cooperate like that. Even adult Vrexil struggle with multi-being coordination. These cubs are learning skills that shouldn't be possible for their age." "Human influence," Taiho said. "I'm teaching them that cooperation is stronger than individual action, that working together achieves what working alone cannot. You're not just raising them, you're evolving them." That afternoon, Taiho took the cubs outside for their daily hunt. This had become routine. The cubs needed to practice their hunting instincts, and the moon's wildlife provided safe targets. But today was different. Taiho had set up a special lesson. He led them to a canyon where he had prepared a scenario. He had placed 3 different prey animals in different locations, each requiring a different hunting strategy. One was fast and required pursuit. One was armored and required precision strikes. One was hiding and required tracking skills. "Choose your targets," Taiho said. "Hunt in your own style. Show me what you've learned." The cubs split up naturally. Kiva went after the armored prey, using her growing strength to pierce through its defenses. Sai tracked the hidden prey, using sensory organs that were developing ahead of schedule. Rek chased the fast prey, his speed and stamina increasing every day. All 3 succeeded, but more importantly, after each kill, they returned to Taiho and presented their prey. Not to eat, but to show him. To share their success. Pack behavior, Hyejin noted from her remote observation post. They're hunting individually but thinking as a pack. That's a human trait, not a Vrexil trait. On day 12, something happened that changed everything again. The cubs' translator implants had been developing as their brains matured. Suddenly, they could speak more clearly. Sai was the first to have a real conversation. She approached Taiho while he was working on his reports. "Taiho Pack," she said. Her voice through the translator was young but clear. "Question?" Taiho looked up from his work. "Yes, Sai?" "Mother comes back. We leave with Mother. But you are Pack. How can Pack separate?" Taiho felt his chest tighten. He had been trying not to think about this. In 3 days, Kervesh would return and take her cubs away. He would probably never see them again. The thought hurt more than he expected. "Sometimes Pack must separate," he said carefully. "Your mother needs you. Your clan needs you. You have a future with your own kind. But you taught us. You protected us. You are Pack Father, Pack Father." The translator struggled with the concept. It was mixing Vrexil and human ideas into something new. "I will always be your Pack Father," Taiho said. "Distance doesn't change that. You'll carry what I taught you, and I'll carry memories of you. That's how pack bonds work." Sai considered this. Then she pressed her head plating against Taiho's forehead. "We'll remember. We'll be strong like Taiho taught." That evening, all 3 cubs slept in Taiho's quarters. They piled around him like they had every night, but tonight felt different. They seemed to understand that their time together was ending. Day 13 brought news. Long-range sensors detected a ship approaching. It was Kervesh's signature. She was alive. She was returning. But the sensors also detected damage to her ship, and her arrival time had changed. She would be late by 18 hours. That meant one more day with the cubs. Taiho used that day to teach them one final lesson. He brought them to the station's observation deck where they could see the stars. "Out there is everything," he told them. "Thousands of species. Millions of worlds. Your mother is out there right now coming back for you. She fought for you. She survived for you. And she trusted me to keep you safe because she knew humans understand what pack means. Kiva looked at the stars. What will we do? After we leave? You'll grow strong. You'll become hunters like your mother, but you'll be different from other Vrexil. You'll remember that cooperation is strength. You'll remember that different species can be pack. And maybe someday you'll teach other Vrexil what you learned here. We'll change our species, Rex said. It was the most complex thought Tahoe had heard from him. Maybe, Tahoe agreed. Change starts small. 3 cubs who learned a different way. Who knows where it will lead? On day 14, Kervesh's ship arrived. The hangar bay was crowded with observers, council representatives, media drones, security forces. Everyone wanted to witness the reunion. Kervesh emerged from her ship. She looked terrible. Fresh scars covered her exoskeleton. One of her limbs moved stiffly. But she was alive. And she had won. Her territory was secure. The 3 cubs ran to their mother. They clicked and chirped excitedly, showing her everything they had learned. Kervesh held them, her blade arms gentle despite their deadly nature. Then she approached Tahoe. The crowd went silent. Clutch Guardian, Kervesh said. You kept them safe, made them strong, made them more than I could have alone. They were always strong, Tahoe said. I just helped them see it. Kervesh made the deep thrumming sound that meant profound emotion. Debt can never be repaid, but gift can be given. She turned to her cubs. She spoke to them in pure Vrexil language. The cubs responded. A long conversation happened, too fast and complex for translators to fully capture. Finally, Kiva approached Tahoe. Mother says we choose. Stay with clan, learn Vrexil ways, or split time. Learn both ways. Both packs. Tahoe looked at Kervesh in shock. You would let them come back? Pack bond is sacred, Kervesh said. You proved this. Cubs need both teachers, need Vrexil strength and human wisdom, need both packs to become fully strong. Ambassador Theln's crystalline structure flickered rapidly. This is unprecedented. This is revolutionary. This changes everything, and he was right. In that moment on that station, something fundamental shifted in galactic civilization. The cubs would spend half their time with Kervesh, learning to be Vrexil, and half their time with Tahoe, learning to be something new, something that had never existed before. Hybrid pack members, beings who belonged to 2 species at once. Over the next hours, the council delegation gathered. Emergency meetings were called. Ambassadors from every species debated what this meant. Hyejin presented her research. She had documented everything over the 2 weeks. The data was undeniable. Human interaction had accelerated the cubs' development. Their problem-solving skills, their cooperation abilities, their adaptability, all exceeded normal Vrexil cubs by significant margins. But more importantly, they had learned something no Vrexil had ever. 28 days passed. Tahoe spent the time preparing. The cubs would return in 2 days, and he wanted everything ready. He had expanded their living space. He had gathered new training materials. He had even learned more Vrexil language so he could communicate better. But on day 29, everything changed. The emergency alert came at midnight. Tahoe woke to red lights and alarms. Commander Soman's voice echoed through the station speakers. All personnel to emergency stations. We have a situation. Tahoe ran to the command center. When he arrived, he found chaos. Multiple screens showed data feeds, communication channels, and sensor readings. Soman stood at the center, her face grim. What happened? Tahoe asked. Kervesh, Soman said. Her territory is under attack again. Multiple clans this time. Reports say at least 5 different groups all attacking at once. They're trying to eliminate her permanently. The cubs, with her, trapped in the breeding grounds. She sent one message before communications were cut. She said the cubs asked for you specifically. Tahoe felt something cold settle in his chest. I need to go, now. You'll never make it in time, Minjae Han said. He had been monitoring the situation from his council office. The breeding grounds are 3 days away, even at maximum speed. By the time you arrive, the battle will be over. Then I'll arrive for the funeral, Tahoe said flatly. I'm not leaving them. You're one human, Minjae said. What can you possibly do against 5 Vrexil clans? Tahoe looked at him. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. I'm one human who refuses to abandon pack. That's what I can do. Doyen stepped forward. I'm going with you. Doyen, you don't have to. Pack, Doyen said simply. That's what you've been teaching everyone, right? Pack doesn't leave pack behind. Those cubs are your pack. which makes them my pack too. So I'm going. Heejin appeared in the doorway. I'm coming too. Someone needs to document what happens, and someone needs to help you survive whatever insanity you're about to commit. Within the hour, they were aboard a fast courier ship. The pilot was a nervous Ticklesh named Rillik, Taiho's old assistant who had evacuated when Kervesh first arrived. He had volunteered to fly them. You saved my life by not making me stay when the Vrexil came, Rillik said. Now I save yours. We are even. The 3-day journey felt like 3 years. Taiho spent the time planning. He studied maps of the breeding grounds. He reviewed Vrexil clan tactics. He prepared weapons and equipment. But mostly, he thought about 3 cubs who trusted him and their mother who had faith in the pack bond. Hyejin watched him. You know this is probably suicide. Probably, Taiho agreed. And you're doing it anyway. Of course. Why? Taiho looked at her. Because humans don't calculate odds when pack is in danger. We don't measure risk against reward. We just go. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us different. On the 3rd day, they arrived at the breeding grounds. The scene was worse than they expected. The scanner showed multiple Vrexil ships. Heat signatures indicated ongoing combat. And at the center, one signature stronger than others. Kervesh still fighting. There's no landing zone, Rillik said nervously. Battle zone too dangerous. Then make one, Doyen said. He had armed himself with every weapon the ship carried. Taiho, you ready? I've been ready for 3 days. They landed hard in a canyon near Kervesh's position. The ship's hull scraped against rocks. Alarms blared. But they were down. The 3 humans and 1 very scared Ticklesh emerged into hell. The breeding grounds were a maze of caves and canyons in a volcanic region. Heat shimmered in the air. The ground was sharp volcanic rock. And everywhere Vrexil fought Vrexil. Taiho saw Kervesh immediately. She was on a ridge surrounded by enemies. Her blade arms moved in desperate defense. Behind her, 3 smaller shapes huddled in a cave entrance. The cubs, there, Taiho pointed. We need to reach that ridge. That's impossible, Hyejin said. There are at least 20 Vrexil between us and them. Then we go through 20 Vrexil, Taiho said. He started running. What happened next became the most famous battle in modern galactic history. The recordings from Hyejin's camera and the overhead drones captured everything. 3 humans and a Ticklesh pilot attacked a Vrexil war party. They shouldn't have had a chance. Vrexil were faster, stronger, naturally armed, but humans had something else. They had tools. They had tactics. They had teamwork. And they had absolute refusal to give up. Doyen used explosive charges to collapse rock formations, creating barriers and traps. Hyejin coordinated their movements, spotting enemies and finding paths through the chaos. Rillik flew the ship in low passes, using the engines to blast enemies with heat and force. And Taiho fought like a demon. He used the environment as a weapon. He led enemies into narrow spaces where their blade arms couldn't maneuver. He used flash charges to blind their sensitive eyes. He employed climbing gear to reach positions they didn't expect. He fought with human creativity and human stubbornness, turning every disadvantage into an advantage. But mostly he never stopped. When he was knocked down, he got up. When he was wounded, he kept fighting. When enemies blocked his path, he found another path. He was a human pursuit predator, and his prey was the safety of his pack. The Vrexil clans had never seen anything like it. They were used to fighting other Vrexil, who followed predictable patterns. But humans didn't follow patterns. Humans adapted. Humans invented. Humans refused to accept that they were outmatched. Taiho reached the ridge. A massive Vrexil blocked his path, a clan leader easily twice Kervesh's size. The creature's blade arms extended, ready to cut the human in half. From the cave, a small voice cried out, "Taiho pack!" It was Kiva. The cubs had seen him. They knew he had come. Taiho looked up at the massive Vrexil. He was exhausted, bleeding, out of ammunition, outweighed by 300 kilograms of natural weapons and armor. He smiled. "You're in my way," Taiho said. "I'm here for my pack. Move or be moved." The Vrexil clan leader laughed. The sound came through his translator as contempt. "Tiny human. You cannot." He never finished. Kervesh struck from the side, her blade arms piercing through joints in his armor. The clan leader fell. Kervesh stood over Taiho, protecting him as he had once protected her cubs. "Pack protects pack," she said. "You came, crossed stars, fought impossible battle. For cubs, for me, for pack bond. Always, Tahoe said. That's what pack means. The other clan leaders saw this. A human and a Vrexil fighting together. They saw the human's wounds, proof of his determination. They saw Kervesh's protective stance, proof of her bond. And they saw 3 cubs emerge from the cave, running not to their mother first, but to Tahoe, pressing their head plating against him. One of the clan leaders spoke, an old female, her exoskeleton scarred from 100 battles. Stop, all clans stop, the fighting paused. Every Vrexil turned toward her. I have lived 300 cycles, the old female said. I have seen much, but never this. A human crosses impossible distance, fights impossible battle. For Vrexil cubs, not his own genetics. This is something new. She approached Tahoe. He was still on his knees, the cubs surrounding him. She examined him like a curious scientist. What are you? She asked. Tired, Tahoe said honestly. And very glad I made it in time. No, what species does this? Fights for another's genetic line? Humans, Tahoe said. We call it pack bonding. We form family bonds with anyone we choose. Species doesn't matter. Genetics doesn't matter. Choice matters. Loyalty matters. The old female clicked thoughtfully. This trait. It is powerful. More powerful than blade arms or armor. You make Vrexil stronger by caring for them. You make them more than they were. She turned to the assembled clans. War ends. New treaty. Kervesh territory is sacred. These cubs are sacred. This human has shown us something we never knew possible. Pack across species. This is the future, the clans agreed. One by one they withdrew. The battle was over. Tahoe collapsed. His wounds were serious. Heejin immediately began treating him while Doyen stood guard. Kervesh and her cubs surrounded them, a living wall of protection. You came for us, Kiva said. Her translator was clearer now, her voice more mature. We called. You answered. True pack, always will, Tahoe said. Then he passed out. He woke 3 days later in a medical bay on Talon 7. The first thing he saw was 3 Vrexil cubs sleeping in a pile beside his bed. The second thing he saw was Kervesh standing watch by the door. You survived, she said. Humans are durable. Humans are stubborn, Tahoe corrected. There's a difference. Over the next weeks, everything changed. The story of Tahoe's rescue spread across the galaxy even faster than the original footage of him raising the cubs. The images of one human attacking 5 Vrexil clans to save his pack became iconic. The Galactic Council called an emergency assembly. Representatives from every member species attended. The chamber was filled with beings of every size, shape, and composition. Ambassador Thelm presented the proposal. The events at the Vrexil breeding grounds have shown us something unprecedented. Humans possess an ability we have not fully understood. The ability to form protective bonds across species boundaries. This changes everything. He brought up footage. Tahoe fighting. Doyen creating barriers. Heejin coordinating. Rillick making attack runs in the ship. All of them working together. Different species united by pack bond with one human's adopted family.